festivals like Rath Yatra, we worship the deity, we fast on Ekadasi, we chant the holy name, we hold seminars and preach and distribute books, and so we have many, many different activities, but it's all actually centered around Harinam Sankirtan. This is the, the main element of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Previous to this, there was a worship of Vishnu and a worship of Krishna, so there were Vaishnavas. In fact, 500 years previously, approximately, we have Ramanujacharya preaching very strongly against Mayavad philosophy and establishing the position of Vishnu through the Vedas. Later on, we have Madhvacharya also preaching very, very strongly for the position of Vishnu. So the Vaishnava movement was very well established in contrast to other types of worship and to the impersonal Mayavad philosophy of Shankaracharya. However, Lord Chaitanya introduced something which was unique at that time, that is Nam Sankirtan as the main element. It is not new in the sense that it is mentioned in the scriptures. If you look in Bhagavatam, obviously Nam Sankirtan is there at the beginning, at the end. It's the conclusion. And we look at other Puranas also, Nam Sankirtan is glorified. However, in spite of the fact that Bhagavatam tells us that in Kali Yuga, our present age, the main process is Nam Sankirtan, people were not actually doing that. Even they were Vaishnavas. So a lot of the activities of the Vaishnava were centered around the temple. In other words, Archana or deity worship was very, very prominent as a sadhana for everybody. And of course they had study of scripture, study of philosophy, etc. as an element also. So the Nam Sankirtan, even though it is mentioned as the main process in Kali Yuga, it was not practically implemented, even though Kali Yuga had begun already 5,000 years before. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just revealed, which was already a fact in the scripture, a statement of the scripture. It was nothing new in one sense, but he simply pointed out this is the process for Kali Yuga. In doing so, he did not reject other processes of bhakti. Of course, we also know that if we look at Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a very strong rejection of other processes. Karma Yoga with Varnashram and Jnana Yoga and Astanga Yoga, they are all very strongly rejected as the main process. And in place of that, we have bhakti, and in bhakti we have Nam Sankirtan. So this is established as the main process through the preaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the beginning of his life, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not preach bhakti. He was growing up, and as a child, it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat, that he studied Sanskrit and he learned logic, and he was fascinated with defeating everybody through logic, which was also quite popular at that time. And we see that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also was involved in logic. And Navadvipa is also famous as a center for teaching logic, Nyaya. This, of course, is also not rejected by the Vaishnavas, though it is also secondary. It's also one of the Saddarshanas, one of the main, let's say, streams of philosophy and derived from the Vedas. But also, if we look at it, it is not really Vaishnavism. And the dependence on logic also makes it rather dry. So Lord Chaitanya, of course, studied logic, and he defeated everybody by logic in his studies, whatever like that. Then he went to Gaya, and he took Vaishnava initiation. And then he came back to Mayapur, Navadvip, and then he began chanting the holy name. He began the Sankirtan movement. And ever after that, then the main activity of Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip was chanting the holy name. As we see here, he would go out with his party of people and chant. In the first year, after he showed his nature as a great Vaishnava and began chanting, it was not public, it was private. So the devotees would lock themselves in Shiva's Pandit's yard and other outsiders could not be them. And then every night they would have kirtan until early hours of the morning. And it was only for the devotees. So it was private kirtan. Then, after 1 year, Lord Chaitanya was thinking, this is not so pleasing, something is wrong. And he said, it's not pleasing because this is actually not to be secret, it is for everyone. So then he instructed his devotees to go out and preach chanting of the holy name to everyone. And this is how the preaching movement actually began, 1 year after he had first introduced Nam Sankirtan. And this is when he sent out Haridas Thakur, Nityananda, and of course they got attacked by Jagai Madhya, etc. So in this way, the Kirtan movement started, and every day there would be Kirtan in the evening in different places. And then later, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, then he went to Puri, and then he went traveling in South India for 4 years or so, then he came back, and then he stayed in Puri the rest of his life. And during that time, of course, when he was in Puri, he would be taking darshan of Jagannath, he would be hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, discussing this with his devotees, and doing kirtan. And every year for 4 months, the devotees from Bengal would come down, and together they would do kirtan in front of the Jagannath Rath Yatra. As this is all described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So in this way, the Lord Chaitanya prominently performed Nam Sankirtan and showing it to the Yuga Dharma. But at the same time, he did not reject other processes. So this is the movement that has been passed on since Lord Chaitanya's time, 500 years ago, to the present time. And you see that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then Srila Prabhupada began to think of ways to spread Nam Sankirtan to all the people of the world. So this has been their endeavor. So we should keep that in mind. As I said, we have many activities we can do, but the center of that is Nam Sankirtan. So the scriptures themselves describe the glories of the name, just chanting the name of the Lord. By the way, the name, or Nam Sankirtan, means simply the name. Krishna, Rama, Govinda, Madhusudan, Hari. So we call out the name of the Lord. That's all. It does not consist of sentences or statements which need grammatical knowledge or whatever. So simply name of the Lord, calling out the name of the Lord. That is what Nama is, Nam Sankirtan. We do have another process of worshipping the Lord that is through mantras, as distinct from Hare Krishna mantra, which is actually Nam. So we have mantras. So mantras also contain the name of the Lord, but they contain other words. And these mantras, the powerful ones, the main ones, are used for the process of Diksha, or initiation. So Lord Chaitanya went to Gaya, he got Diksha. So what did he get? He got a 10-syllable Krishna mantra at that time, which he never told anybody. So you cannot do kirtan, sankirtan with that, because you cannot broadcast it. It's secret. Guru gives you the mantra, you cannot reveal to anybody. If you reveal of it, no power in the mantra anymore. So it has to be secret. So that is what the Diksha mantra is. The Lord Chaitanya did Diksha, but when he preached, he did not preach Diksha mantra. He teached Nama, which is the Hare Krishna mantra instead, Nama. So it's distinct. The name is simply the name. The mantra is got Krishna's name in it, but it has Namaha or Swaha and other syllables, etc. And it's not revealed. So that is what is conveyed through Diksha. So why do we do Diksha at all? Is because, one, it is used for deity worship. So if we follow Pancharatra, you have to take Diksha. With that you get the mantra. With that you're qualified for worship, archana. Without that, you're not qualified. Because you must use that mantra when you offer the flowers and the water and whatever to the deity. If you don't use it, Krishna does not accept. That, of course, is Pancharatra standard. Also, we know, even without mantra, chant Hare Krishna, offer the deity with devotion, Krishna is going to accept, but that's not Pancharatra. So for worshipping deities, we follow Pancharatra standard. Therefore, Diksha is involved. So this was the main process before, as I said, in other sampradayas. Yeah? The deity worship, they didn't do Harinam or anything. Deity worship was the process. And therefore, they had to take Diksha to get their mantra. And each sampradaya will have different mantras. So Lord Chaitanya took a mantra, and that qualified him for deity worship. Just as to study the Vedas, what is the qualification? Mantra, Gayatri mantra, Brahma Gayatri mantra. You take Upanayanam Samskar, you're qualified to study the Vedas. You get Diksha with the Krishna mantra, you're qualified to worship Krishna according to Pancharatra standards. It's a similar type of thing. Of course, we are not so much, these are not the main elements for us at all. That is studying the Vedas or worship of the deity. These are not the main elements. Nam Sankirtan is the main element. Yeah? So Lord Chaitanya did not emphasize everybody has to take Diksha. He says everybody should chant the holy name. This is Harinam Eva Keval, and that's what it means. Chant the name of the Lord. So this is the process that he started. And though it is very simple, simply the name of the Lord, it is most powerful, more powerful than mantras, which are secret. So the name of the Lord is public. Everybody can hear, everybody can chant, everybody can know it. So it's more suitable for the people of Kali Yuga who have no qualification. To get the Vaishnava mantra for deity worship, you do have to be qualified. The Guru is not going to give deity mantras to everybody who are not going to worship the deity, don't know how to worship, are unclean, are undisciplined. He only gives to people who are qualified to worship the deity. So it's not a practical method for everybody anyway. But name is for everybody. Why? Because even if people who don't have faith hear it, there is effect. We see Ajamil just uttered the name Narayana. That's Nama. Name of Narayana only. No mantra, nothing. Just Narayana. Not even indicating Supreme Lord, indicating his son. And what happened? All of his karmas were destroyed. So even accidental chanting of the name of the Lord destroys your karmas. What to speak of doing with devotion? Of course, we're not so much interested in destroying karmas, we're interested in attaining prema. So chanting with devotion leads you to realization of Supreme Lord Krishna and prema. So very, very powerful, and doesn't need all of these formalities of Diksha, etc. Very, very powerful. How is that possible? This is mercy of Krishna. So, there's this famous statement from the Padma Purana, Nam Chintamani, Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. The name, that's simply the name, not the mantras, not the Diksha mantras or anything. Simply the name, like Hare Krishna, is Chintamani. And what is Chintamani? Touchstone. And what does touchstone do? Turns everything into gold or whatever. Whatever you want, you can get. Hold the stone, you can get anything. And Krishna also is Chintamani. Krishna can give anything to anybody. So if you want anything in the material world, you pray to Krishna, you can get it. If you want anything outside the material world also, you pray to Krishna, you can get it. If you want liberation, you can get it. If you want prema, you can get it from Krishna. Name is non-different. So you chant the name, you can also get anything in the material world. You can get liberation, and you can get prema. Non-different. This is the last line. Abhinatva nama namino. Name is non-different from nami. Nami is person indicated by the name. That's Krishna. Name is Krishna, person Krishna are non-different. Abhinatva. Huh? So both are Chintamani. They can give you everything. And it doesn't even require initiation. So very free to give out to everybody. So who is Krishna? He's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, a form of spiritual rasa. In fact, in the Nectar of Devotion, first verse is Akila Rasa Murti. Krishna is Akila Rasa Meta Murti, which means he is the form of all rasas, primary and secondary rasas. He is the complete manifestation of all rasas. What is the importance of rasa? If we don't have rasa, we don't have a relationship with the Lord. If we don't have a relationship with the Lord, you can't even do bhakti. So perfection of bhakti is to establish the rasa, the relationship with Krishna in love. And it is a spiritual relationship. So Krishna is the very form of all rasas. And what is the result of establishing the rasa? Bliss, ananda. So without the rasa, you don't have the ananda. So Krishna is the source and the very form of all spiritual rasas. But the name is not different from Krishna. The name also is all rasas. So you can realize the rasa with Krishna through chanting his name. Very important. So Krishna is Purna. Of course, all forms of the Lord are Purna. They're all complete. They're all one. There's only one Bhagavan, not many Bhagavans. And Bhagavan is defined as the supreme independent with all perfections. So definitely all the forms of the Lord are Purna. But we also say Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. After listing all of the different avatars, then Bhagavatam says, but Krishna is Bhagavan himself, which means he is in a very special position among all the other forms. If we look at the writings of Rupa Goswami, like the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, there points out that and in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, that the forms of the Lord are there, and they're all one Lord, but they manifest different amounts of qualities, like the moon. The moon is one. There's not 2 moons, or 14 moons, or 15 moons, or 30 moons, or whatever. There is one moon, but we label it differently on different days. So we have, Pratipat and Dvitiya, Tritiya, etc. And in all these different days with different names, the moon seems to change. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger till it becomes Purnima. But it's one moon. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is one, Bhagavan, but in these different forms, like Varaha, or Matsya, or Kurma, and Vamana, it will manifest different amounts of qualities, like the moon will manifest different amounts of light on different days. So in these different forms, the Lord will manifest different amounts of qualities. The form of the Lord who manifests the most qualities in complete form is Krishna. He's like the Purnima. So he is Purna. And the other forms are less. So Krishna is the Purna form, or actually Purnatama form in Vrindavan of the Lord, of Bhagavan. If we chant the name of Krishna, we can realize the Purna or Purnatama form. That is the complete form, Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is Suddha, which means he is pure. That means that unlike the jiva, the Lord is never contaminated by anything in the material world. Jiva has a subtle body, a gross body, ahankara, mind, elements, etc., material attraction, desires, material desires. All of this not present in Bhagavan ever. In that sense, he is eternally pure. The name also is eternally pure because it's not from Krishna. It has to be eternally pure also. So we should never think of the name as a material sound. However, the Lord appears within the material world as avatar, and sometimes it looks as if he is material. And even great devotees sometimes say, it is confusing to us how the Lord is doing all these activities. He looks like a normal human being. And this is discussed in the first canto of Bhagavatam. That people say, Bisma says, we're bewildered. Kunti says, we're bewildered by the Lord. He acts like a human being, not like God. Which means we can find fault and say, oh, why does Krishna do this? Why does he steal? Why does he lie? Why does he deceive people? Looks like a normal covered person in the material world. But no, he's not. Comes in the material world, he's nityamukta. He's not contaminated at all. It appeared to us he's contaminated, but he is not. He is always in his Sudha position. But he comes into the material world by his mercy. Similarly, the holy name also is eternally pure, but it also comes into the material world and maintains that status of being eternally pure. It is not contaminated at all. Of course, we speak about nam, abhas, and impure name, mixed chanting, etc. But that's not the name. The name is pure like the sun. And when it's cloudy, we can't see the sun today. So we say, oh, the sun is covered by clouds. But if you go up in an airplane, it's not covered by clouds. Go up in an airplane, you're above the clouds. Sun is the same sun. From our point of view, yes, covered. From high point of view, not. So name is like that. Appears to be covered, partial influence only, because we have the clouds of our anartas. But name itself is pure. So it's not the name is impure, it's we are impure. So therefore the influence of the name is less. Like the sun influences less on a cloudy day. But eternal, pure. So, Nityamukta, name is ever pure, like Supreme Lord himself. So in this way, the name and the Lord are non-different. And the name of Krishna is non-different from Krishna himself, who is Bhagavan Swayam, highest form, most perfect form of the Lord. And in that perfect form, we'll get the highest manifestation of rasas, which are not manifested in other forms of the Lord. Consequently, if we worship and realize Krishna through that particular rasa with Krishna, we can also realize the most bliss. Because Krishna has the highest rasa, Krishna has the highest bliss. We realize Krishna in rasa, we realize highest bliss. So, this is the nature of Krishna, and we chant the name, we get the same result. So this is the benefit of chanting the name. And unlike other processes, less qualification is there. Very less qualification. However, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and other works, it is mentioned that we have the name and what it can give, but we also distinguish different types of name. So we have Ajamil chanting the name. So we do not consider that the same as Haridas Thakur chanting the name. There looks like there's some difference there, and there actually is a difference. And we can question, will there be a different result from that chanting? And the answer is yes. So we have something called Namabhas, which is covered name, like as Ajamil. We get one effect, that is destruction of karmas. That much you can get. This also is not a minor result as far as other processes is concerned. It is the ultimate result for gyanis and yogis to destroy all your karma. And that is easily achieved by ajamil, by just saying Narayana. So it does a lot in one sense. However, the devotee is not really interested in liberation at all. So, with namabhas, yes, you can get liberation, destroy all your karmas, no problem, like ajamil. But devotees are aspiring for prema. So you don't get that through namabhas. You must have pure name. Sudanam. No abhas, no coverings. Huh? So, how do we get rid of the covering? How do we get from namabhas to pure name? One of the means is knowledge. Not jnana in the sense of Shankar's jnana, but Bhagavat jnana, Sambandha jnana. So this is often mentioned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's also mentioned by Jiva Goswami. That this initial knowledge is also necessary for us to advance. We have to have knowledge of different things in order to get prema. We don't need that knowledge if you want liberation. You can be like ajamil even with no faith, and you can get liberation by chanting the name. But if you want prema, you need some knowledge. So, as I said, the main process is chanting the holy name, and we see that in early days of ISKCON, that's what they would do. They'd go out the street with drum and kartal in America and do kirtan all the time. But Prabhupada spent a lot of his time writing books. He gave translation of and commentary on Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam. He spent a lot of time doing that. So he expected the devotees not only to chant the holy name, but also get knowledge of the Supreme Lord, so that we can chant purely, so we can get prema. So therefore we do need some extra things besides the chanting. We need some knowledge. So we have to read the books. So fortunately, the philosophical aspect, or let me say theological aspect, is not too difficult to comprehend. And if we get this straight, then we can come to the level of pure chanting. It's not too difficult. Usually when we hear the word philosophy, people fall asleep. It's too difficult, too abstract, too technical, or whatever. And of course, if you look at commentaries on Brahma Sutras by Shankaracharya and even Ramanujacharya, it's very complex and all sorts of arguments going back and forth using logic. But the basics are not difficult to understand. So we have things we have to, this is called preliminary knowledge, Sambandha Jnana means knowledge of relationships. So we do have to have some elementary knowledge to define what is real, what is false, and then if there's more than one real thing, we have to discuss the relationship between these real things. And this is important because the different philosophies say different things. Buddhism says nothing is real. Everything is illusion. Shankaracharya says everything is illusion except one Brahman. And Brahman is real. But there is nothing else. There's only one, there's no relationship. Only Brahman exists. Everything else is illusion. This, of course, he bases on Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra. The Buddhists, they reject the Vedas completely. So they say everything is illusion. So no, Brahman is mentioned in the Upanishads, so therefore we accept Brahman as the one real, but only one real thing, everything else is illusion. But if we look in the Brahma Sutras, if we look at the Upanishads, if we look in the other Puranas and everything, we find that something else is stated. No. There are other real things. Yes, Brahman is real, but there are other things real, like there is a real world. World is not illusion. The jiva is real. So, in other words, we have to get the scriptural conclusion, not just Brahman exists or nothing exists at all, but rather there are different real objects, and we have to see their relationship. So that is what Sambandha Gyan does. Based on that, then we can have a process to attain a goal. If we don't define who we are and what is God and what is matter, we can't define a process at all, nor a goal. Huh? If there's nothing, obviously, you can't discuss anything. If there's only Brahman, everything else is illusion, you also cannot discuss anything because everything is illusion that you discuss. And only Brahman exists. All you can do is get rid of the illusion somehow, and then you are Brahman. Huh? But if we want to find out what's real and discuss the relationship, then we can establish a true goal and a practice to get to the goal. So that philosophy or Sambandha Gyan is very simple. One, there is a real existent supreme being called Ishvara or Bhagavan. So in that sense, we agree with Shankaracharya. He says Brahman, we say Ishvara. But difference is that that supreme entity is not formless or without quality. That supreme Brahman has form, qualities, and activities. So this is Supreme Lord. So he's number one. Supreme entity, all power, all knowledge, all perfect. But he's a person. So that we have to accept first. First fact we accept. If we don't define the supreme entity in this way, there's no question of doing bhakti at all. Next, we have 3 Shaktis. Antaranga Shakti or Chit Shakti or Sarup Shakti of the Lord. This is the spiritual Shakti of the Lord. So this is the power by which the Lord manifests his name, form, qualities, and activities, and pastimes, and place, Dhamma, Goloka, and Vaikuntha, and the rasas, all through his Shakti. So we have Supreme Lord as a person with form. He's got his eyes and his hands and his clothing and his flute. All that's manifested through the Chit Shakti. But not only he's manifested with his form, all the devotees manifest with forms. And they're in a place, Vaikuntha or Goloka, all through the Chit Shakti. And they have pastimes and relationships through Chit Shakti. So very important Shakti. It's called Antaranga or internal or intimate because it's inseparable from the Supreme Lord. The Lord never exists alone. He exists with his form, qualities, activities, devotees, Dhamma, pastimes, etc., eternally in the spiritual world. So this is very important Shakti of the Lord. If there's no Shakti of the Lord, he doesn't manifest anything and he's simply Brahman. Formless, qualityless, nameless, etc. And nothing else exists, only Brahman. That would be Shankar's thing. But he has Chit Shakti by which he manifests spiritual world and everything. So first energy is there. Second energy is called the Tatastha Shakti, the marginal energy. Tatastha means situated on the border between material and spiritual worlds. This ultimately refers to the jivas, who are similar to the Lord because they are conscious, but unlike the Lord because they are not independent. They are servants of the Lord, subject to the Lord. They don't have all knowledge, they don't have complete powers. They are less than the Lord. They are also said to be small, Anu, and Lord is one, even though he has many forms as Bhagavan. A jiva, many. Not one, many. Infinite in number. So these jivas have consciousness. They have a sense of I. Each jiva is an individual. He doesn't think he's somebody else. And they have their own ability to choose what they want to do. And they can also choose spiritual world or material world. So this is the jiva. It's important to distinguish that there is a jiva who is real and eternal and different from the Lord. If we don't establish this fact, we cannot do bhakti. Or we do bhakti as a Mayavadi would do it, with the aim of suddenly disappearing and merging into Supreme Brahman, and then there is no bhakti. But we say the opposite. No, we go to the spiritual, we do bhakti, go to the spiritual world, we have spiritual form, and we have prema, final form of bhakti, and just experience bliss in relation to the Lord eternally. So we have to have definition of a permanent jiva who's real. Third energy, bahiranga shakti, external energy, opposite of internal energy. This energy is quite disconnected from the Supreme Lord. It's not very intimately associated with Him. What does it do? And what is it? It is like jivas, dependent on the Lord, could not act independently, but unlike the jivas, it is unconscious. It is different from the jivas. It has no consciousness, no sense of I, no capacity for experiencing anything. It was quite different. Well, what it does is it makes a material world, we say 14 worlds, and it produces bodies for living entities, material bodies, so they can enjoy in the material world. So that's the function of this bahiranga shakti, or material energy. But it's under the Supreme Lord. So we have Supreme Lord at top. He has manifest spiritual world through his antaranga shakti, or chit shakti, or para shakti. Has the bahiranga shakti, which under him manifests material worlds, material universes, planets and bodies, etc. And he also manifests the jivas. And we say manifest because actually they're eternal. Even Prakriti is eternal. So it's not the Lord creates Prakriti, it's there forever. No beginning, no end. Jiva has no beginning, no end. Spiritual world has no beginning, no end. So all three are eternal. But they act under the Lord. And jivas will manifest in the spiritual world or material world under the influence of the Lord. Prakriti will develop into universes under the influence of the Supreme Lord. So in that sense, everything is under Lord's control. So that's our simple philosophy. Ishvara at top, Supreme Lord, who has name, form, qualities, activities, etc., not impersonal, supreme conscious entity. He manifests three shaktis. Chit Shakti, important what? Manifests the whole spiritual world, everything in the spiritual world. Creates bliss. It's eternal. Through the Achit Shakti, the material energy, he manifests all the material worlds, which are unconscious. And through the third Shakti, the Jiva Shakti, or the Tatastha Shakti, which is in between, as we see here, we get all the jivas who are conscious but dependent on the Lord. Because they have free will, they can choose spiritual world or material world. Choose material world, what does it mean? It means we reject the existence of the Lord. We are not his servant. We would rather enjoy on our own. In order to do that, then the jiva has to take a material body. Taking a material body, he can enjoy material objects, independent of the Lord, more or less, but subject to the Lord because the Lord produces law of karma for him. So jiva can choose material world, or he can choose spiritual world. So we have in the spiritual world what we call nityasiddhas, jivas who never have been to the material world, never will be in the material world. They're called nityasiddhas. They've eternally chosen to serve the Lord. They're not positioned. In the material world, we have jivas. They can also choose to eternally serve in the material world. If they want, they can choose that. But the Lord gives them a chance, influences them to think that this is not so nice, and he inspires them to choose another place. Get out of the material world. Yeah? And so through scripture, association, etc., the jiva in the material world can take to the process of bhakti, and get to the spiritual world. So there's possibility that jivas who choose material world to choose the opposite, to choose spiritual world. Those who are in the spiritual world never choose material world. They're eternally endowed with superior intelligence, so they don't choose material world ever. They have a choice, but they never choose. So that is the philosophy in summary. So the jivas in the material world are there, and they can sit there and take material bodies subject to karma, life after life. They can remain like that. But the Lord is very compassionate, and he strives to guide them away from this. So the Lord gives scriptures and establishes Manus and their descendants, kings, to establish processes by which the jiva can advance upwards and get out of the material world. First process is karma yoga with varnashram. This is the lowest process for people who really don't have any interest in spiritual life. But they want to live comfortably in the material world. So to do that, if they follow the laws of karma yoga, they can avoid sin, they can do pious activity, and they can sit in the material world life after life enjoying. But that system is made in such a way that it includes a little bhakti in it also. So they get a little bit influence at least, and they also become more detached from the material world. And if they do, they reach sattva gun. Then they become qualified for jnana yoga and astanga yoga. And in sattva gun, a person realizes that I'm not the body, I am Atma. So I should strive to be fixed in Atma and get out of the material world. So the jnanis and the yogis then strive for freedom from the material world, that is, liberation. So this is a step above material world because you're not subject to karma anymore and taking body after body. However, this is only one level. Liberation is you're without a material body, without karma, but you're not in the spiritual world yet. So you're kind of in the middle. You practice jnana yoga, astanga yoga, you get out of the material world, but you don't get to the spiritual world. You're stuck in between. So to get to the spiritual world, you have to do bhakti yoga. So this is a superior process because it gives superior result. Jnana and yoga just get up to liberation. They don't go further. Bhakti yoga can give you anything that karma yoga can give, anything that jnana can give, but it gives more than that. It gives spiritual world. So we have, therefore, all these processes supplied, and we can go gradually start with karma yoga, purify, get to sattva gun, start practicing jnana yoga, understand we're not the body, try for liberation, and then go to bhakti and go to spiritual world. But long process, difficult, especially in Kali Yuga, where even karma yoga cannot be practiced properly. So what to speak of jnana or anything else, can't even get to karma yoga because there are no kings anymore. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, better you just stick to bhakti yoga. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. You give up karma yoga, jnana yoga, astanga yoga. Just do bhakti. Surrender to me. Only qualification is faith. It does not depend on whether you do karma or jnana or yoga at all. You could be a dog eater outside the varnashram system, no karma yoga at all. If you have faith, you can take to bhakti yoga. So this is a practical process for people in Kali Yuga, most of the people who are not even doing karma yoga. They can start if they have shraddha or faith. Conviction in the Supreme Lord. Conviction in the bhakti scriptures like Bhagavatam. You have that, then you follow the orders, and you do sadhana bhakti. Practical bhakti. Bhakti in practice. By which you get to bhav bhakti, first realization of Krishna, name and Krishna non-different, and then you get to prema bhakti, and you're qualified for spiritual world. So, in this process of bhakti then, as I said, they were doing so many different activities, including deity worship. Lord Chaitanya pointed out that main process is, in bhakti, is chanting the holy name, Nam Sankirtan. So we start out, but as I said, we will start out with our faith, but we do have impurities, etc., and lack of knowledge. This is Namabas. Name is there, but we have coverings, so the full influence of the name is not there. Good, you can destroy your karmas that way, but you cannot get prema. So to get prema, we have to do Sudhanam. So, like we do pure bhakti. So the whole of the nectar devotion is based upon this definition of Anya Abhilashita Shunya. Bhakti should be free of all other desires. But then you can get to prema. So that's our sadhana bhakti that we practice. So in the sadhana bhakti, the main element is name. So like sadhana bhakti should be pure bhakti, so name should also be pure. We should chant the name without other desires, without false knowledge, without bewildered knowledge. So we have to come to Sudhanam. And by chanting Sudhanam and sadhana bhakti, we get to bhav bhakti. We continue chanting holy name. We get to prem bhakti. We continue chanting holy name in the spiritual world. So this is eternal process. We don't give it up at any stage. Simply it becomes more and more perfect. So that's the nature of the name. So, mentioned about the Antaranga Shakti or the Chit Shakti of the Lord. We'll see that this Antaranga Shakti or Chit Shakti has three basic functions. One is called the Sandhini Shakti, the other is the Samvit Shakti, the other is the Hladini Shakti. So the Sandhini Shakti is the basic Shakti which establishes the existence of everything in the spiritual world, like the Dhamma manifests through the Sandhini Shakti. But not only that, the name, form, qualities, and activities exist because of the Sandhini Shakti. It gives existence to everything. It supports the existence of everything. So it's a very important Shakti. So the name is manifested through the Sandhini Shakti like other things, name, qualities, activities. But in the name are also the form, qualities, and activities. In the name itself, even though they're manifested all through Sandhini Shakti, somehow they all get stuck within the name. So this is an easy approach to realizing Krishna. We chant the name, and through the name we realize the form of Krishna, because name and Krishna are non-different. But along with the form, then we realize the qualities of Krishna, because they're part of Krishna, and then the activities or pastimes of Krishna. So all this is manifested through name. Contains everything. There are many names of the Lord in Scripture. We'll see there are Vishnu Sahasranam, Krishna Sahasranam, Baladev Sahasranam, Nrsimha Sahasranam, so many different names. And there's 100 names or whatever, different types of name, collections of names are there. But we have to be careful what type of name we choose to chant. So we have primary names and secondary names. Gauna Nama and Mukhya Nama. So the Mukhya Namas are the ones we should choose. So these are the names which describe Bhagavan with his name, form, qualities, and activities in the spiritual world. And we chant those names, we realize Bhagavan in the spiritual world, we get prema, and we're qualified for the spiritual world. Other names will describe secondary functions of the Lord, like the Creator. He's omniscient, he pervades, he is the witness, he's the destroyer of karma. It's certainly true in relation to the Lord, but these are qualities described in relation to the material world. Let's say Vishnu is there as Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu. So he controls the world, glances, produces the world, penetrates, pervades everything, knows everything, etc. So when we use those names, yes, there are definitely names of the Lord, but they don't produce the same result. They can elevate us in the material world and get liberation. So We don't want liberation. We want Bhagavan with its name, form, qualities, activities. We should chant the primary names. Of course, even among the primary names, there is some difference. So we hear that 1,000 names of Vishnu equal one name of Rama. But 3 names of Rama equal one name of Krishna. So even among the primary names, we have a difference, and Krishna is the topmost name of all. So we talked about different types of chanting. Can I get some water? We often hear about namaparad, chanting with offense. Well, we don't want that. No progress at all, and actually opposite. You become degraded instead. So in namaparad, we think that Krishna and the name are not different. Krishna is a material entity, name is a pious activity, etc. Everything is illusion or whatever. So there's no real spiritual progress with that. It's offensive and no progress at all. So we have to avoid namaparad completely. Namabhas, if we chant, Ajamil, of course, chanted accidentally. He got free of all his karmas. We can chant namabhas intentionally also, devotees, if they have lack of knowledge, if they have too many anarthas. This also produces namabhas. So you can advance, but it's slow. And you cannot get prema. But you can advance up to liberation. Sudanam, with proper knowledge of philosophy, etc., knowledge of pure bhakti. And you chant with avoiding all the different anarthas. You can have Sudanam and you get quick progress, and through that you get prema. So we chant Sudanam. In Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, there's the story of how the people from Navadvip would yearly go to Puri and visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one year they asked the question, who is a Vaishnava? And Lord Chaitanya said, anyone who chants the name once is a Vaishnava. So they were rather surprised by that. It's a very liberal definition of a Vaishnava. So they didn't say anything, and they went back to Navadvip, and they were discussing among themselves, well, what does this mean? Why does Lord Chaitanya say just chant once? Because Lord Chaitanya is always chanting. So what does he mean? Chant once, you're a Vaishnava. So they were curious. Next year they went back and asked the same question, who's the Vaishnava? And Lord Chaitanya said, anyone who chants purely, constantly, is a Vaishnava. So they said, oh, very good. And they all accepted it, and they went back to Navadvip. But then they began thinking, well, why did he give 2 different answers? He's Supreme Lord. He should have understood that previous year he gave a different answer. Why does he give a different answer now? So they thought, why did he do this? So 3rd year they went back and asked the same question, who's the Vaishnava? And then Lord Chaitanya said, anyone who chants and through that inspires others to chant purely, he is a Vaishnava. So then they understood that Lord Chaitanya was defining 3 levels of people who chant purely. 1, chant a little bit, chant constantly, and through that chanting, he can inspire others to chant. He's the best of all. But it's all pure name. What is a qualification for chanting? Well, any human being, like Ajamil, they accidentally chant the name meaning something else or whatever. They get some effect, so they can chant in that sense, and they get effect. But if we want prema, then we should have faith, genuine faith. And with that faith, then we have association of devotees, and we get knowledge, and we start chanting purely. So faith is like the usual qualification for serious chanting. Still, it is not subject to all the rules that are there for deity worship or karma yoga or jnana yoga or astanga yoga. There's no restriction on place. Any place you can chant. any time you can chant. Usually we also have inauspicious times, like muhurtas. Some muhurtas are bad. You cannot study Vedas in certain muhurtas. Certain tithis are bad. You cannot chant on certain tithis. Or certain days, like astamis or whatever, navamis and astamis and purnimas, you cannot study Vedas or whatever. No restrictions for chanting the name. And even cleanliness, not a consideration. Clean, unclean, you chant the holy name, has effect. So in this sense, very, very liberal. So in this way, the name is available for everybody in Kali Yuga. But if we want prema, we have to choose the primary names. Of course, we could choose any primary name because we come in Lord Chaitanya's movement. He emphasized chanting the Hare Krishna mantra as the main process, so that's what we do. We chant Hare Krishna and Rama. We chant Sudanam rather than Namabas or Namaparad, Sudanam if we want to get prema. And not chant once, but chant constantly. How do we get all the knowledge to chant purely, etc.? We have to get association of devotees, get scriptural knowledge, etc. Along with that, we'll do other favorable activities in bhakti and even in karma yoga or jnana yoga. If they're favorable activities, we can do them. And we avoid the unfavorable activities. And through that, we can get to prema and spiritual world. Okay, Hare Krishna. Yeah, he had a question.
There are some questions you will take.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Oh,
Can you speak a few words today about Maharaj?
yeah. What was the question?
Why are some jivas nityasiddhas and others are not? And why are we not nityasiddhas? What is the difference?
Why are we?
Not nityasiddhas.
Why are we not nityasiddhas?
Why we are not nityasiddhas?
Because we don't like Krishna. And we've never liked Krishna. Had no inclination for Krishna. And why some do and some don't? Because there's infinite jivas and they're all individuals. So there's some jivas that like Krishna, some that don't. So the ones in the material world, the ones that don't like Krishna, don't want to recognize God, they want to enjoy on their own.
Hare Krishna. So we were discussing about Shuddha Nama. So we chant Hare Krishna mantra. Before that, we chant the Panchatattva mantra. So Panchatattva mantra also is the holy names. So there may be there should be significance of Panchatattva mantra. So specifically, I want to know about Gadadhara. Whenever I chant, like Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadadhara. So Gadadhara means personality with the Gadadhara. That imagination keeps coming. So Gadadhara. So what is the significance of name Gadadhara? Like because he is Gadadhara is neither a incarnation of Balram or Kumara.
Well, Gadadhar Pandit is non-different from Hladini Shakti Radha. So we chant Hare Krishna, Hare is also Radha.
Why that name Gadadhara?
Huh?
What is the significance of name Gadadhara?
Well, all these names usually of the associates of Lord Chaitanya are names of the Supreme Lord. So Gadadhar means holder of the club, and so we have Vishnu with the club, or Srivas is the shelter of Sri Lakshmi. Lakshmi sits on Narayan's chest or whatever like that. So they're all names of these devotees given by their parents.
Because the names are written, so I'm trying to associate with how Gadadhara is related to Radharani.
No, it's not that Gadadhar refers directly, but the person Gadadhar, who had the name Gadadhar, is actually Shakti of Hladini Shakti, Radha. Just as Lord Chaitanya is a different name from Krishna, but it's actually Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, just wanted to know, as you said, there are secondary gone up. So different dates, like they chant the names of Allah, Jeva. They come in the secondary names of Krishna, or how it comes.
Which names?
Allah Jehovah. Allah Jehovah.
Well, those are not really mentioned, directly mentioned, but because they generally describe the general characteristics of God. God is great, etc. They're very general. They're not particular about the pastimes in the spiritual world. So therefore, they'll give secondary effects like liberation.
And after liberation, where Jivatma progresses, or what happens to Jivatma?
Well, you can just merge in Brahman, which is not so good for the devotees.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation, Maharaj. You mentioned that by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, anyone can chant and they can get Krishna prema. I remember hearing from his yes, Madhavan Prabhu, he quoted Gaurav Goswami Maharaj.
Who?
Madhavan Prabhu. So he asked Maharaj, what is the difference in chanting before initiation and after initiation? So Gaurav Maharaj remarked that before initiation, if you chant, we get bhakti unmukhi sukriti, and if you chant after initiation, then you can get Krishna prema. So this initiation then from there.
Well, of course, what does initiation mean? That's one thing. Because what we call initiation is different from what was initiation in Lord Chaitanya's time. Lord Chaitanya got a mantra, that was initiation, finished. But we do our first initiation, we don't get mantra at all. That's in second initiation. So we get two initiations. But there wasn't no two initiations, only one initiation previously. So there's a confusion of terminologies when we talk about initiation as such. However, what we call first initiation is derived from something called Nam Dan in the Gaudiya Math. Lord Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur introduced people to become serious, that is, follow some rules, has some vows, etc. And he gave them a name, and that's what we call first initiation, basically. So in other words, yes, that so-called first initiation makes you more serious. However, even without that, you could be serious as well. Without getting formally that ceremony or whatever, you could be serious. You could be chanting 16 rounds without that. So, therefore, the ceremony itself is there. Prabhupada also says it's a formality. So, good to have, of course, because some people like formalities and rituals, etc. It also helps them become more firm in their determination. But even without that, you can progress. So the name itself, as I said, is independent. And that's stated directly in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's independent of Diksha. Directly stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It doesn't depend on Diksha at all. And so that means that you get your perfection by that. But as I said, you have to get at least to Suranam. And as Lord Chaitanya said, you should chant constantly, and you should, higher stages, you should inspire others to chant as well. So definitely, we need some knowledge in order to chant purely. So we need association of devotees. We have to follow the rules and regulations that they instruct us on, whatever. And therefore, we can advance, get to Suranam and advance.
So this means that acceptance of the spiritual master is important because Ada Guru Padashya, that's what Rupa Goswami, Ada Guru Ashya, Rupa Goswami is saying annually. But means after accepting his spiritual master, even if one is not initiated, means they can get Krishna prema.
Can. That's what Lord Chaitanya says. It doesn't depend on Diksha. That's, as I said, quoting from Chaitanya Charitamrita. But as I said, you should get proper knowledge, which means you accept a guru, maybe not a Diksha guru, but at least a Shiksha guru. So we can't avoid that. We have to get knowledge somehow to get pure name, to get prema.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Of course, actually, we're talking about guru. Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't emphasize Diksha guru. He traced the line of Shiksha gurus, no Diksha at all. He's tracing our parampara through shiksha, which was scandalous at that time. How you can do that, your dikshas, you know. But shiksha is more important. So he traced our line through shiksha. So that's how we get prema.
Maharaj, I was going through Radha Sasman spoken by Lord Shiva, and this is a little off question, but I just wanted to clarify. That one name comes of Srimati Radharani, Bilva Vriksha Nivasini. She resides in the Bilva tree.
Isn't it?
Bilva tree, Bela tree.
Okay, Bilva tree.
Yeah. So, is that the reason that Lord Shiva likes Bale tree so much?
Oh, I don't know. The Shivites may have a different reason. I don't know.
Maharaj, you mentioned that the Lord's external energy is unconscious. Is Durga Devi the external energy, or is he considered as the controller?
Well, Durga Devi is the controller of the energy, so she is conscious, obviously. She's a Shakti of the Lord, so she's conscious. But the material energy itself is inert.
Levels of chanting. Actually, this Panchatattva mantra, it is means once I heard that when we chant this Panchatattva mantra, all our offenses get cleansed. Is it Vaishnava offense?
What's that?
All the offenses get cleaned when we chant Panchatattva mantra.
Oh. Well, we see that Lord Chaitanya, in his pastimes, was more merciful than Krishna. And therefore, he forgave the operatis like Jagai and Madhai who actually attacked Nityananda and Haridas Thakur. So he forgave them. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya is considered to be the most merciful, and he delivers even the operatis. So if we chant the name of Lord Chaitanya and his associates, then we can get free of these operads or whatever. Lord Chaitanya will tolerate our existence and our operads. But at the same time, we do have to make some attempt to become free of operads. We can't say, well, I'll commit more operads and let Lord Chaitanya free me from the bad effects of it. That becomes chanting on the strength of, committing sinful activity on the strength of chanting the holy name, which is another operad. Oh, I would think that most of them are connected with the Gaudiya Sampradaya. So maybe there is Nityananda Vamsa or they may be connected to some line, some Goswami line. So I think they're connected somehow.
You said the name of Krishna is like the moon of tuning. So why don't we chant just Krishna, Krishna, Krishna?
Yeah, you can. But we're also following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he emphasized Hare Krishna. Of course, if we chant Hare Krishna, we can also realize Radha, not just Krishna, so that's better. So we can get Madhurya Rasa through that.
There is another question. Why is Hare Krishna Hare as it is like somewhere Hare is before Krishna and sometimes Krishna is before?
Why is it like that? Well, it's in scripture itself. In the Kali Santana Upanishad, that's how the names are there. Of course, it said you could just chant Krishna, 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 or Gopal, Govinda. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya is singing the names Govinda, Madhusudan, etc., etc. So that's all Nam Kirtan. It's all powerful. But Lord Chaitanya chose this, which is also Shruti, it's from Upanishad, as one combination. So we chant that, following his example.
Hare Krishna. The goal of essence is to come to the constant chanting of the Holy Name. But since at our stage we might not be clear the Sambandha. Sambandha has good knowledge.
Yeah.
So we might not acquainted with chanting constantly. So 16 rounds minimum we can do. And if we rest of the time if we focus on knowledge aspect, it will be okay for us because when because we don't have taste, we cannot chant constantly.
Yeah.
So minimum 16, at least in our stage, minimum 16 notes we chant, whatever possible attentively. And rest of the time, if we can focus more on Prabhupada's book, is it the time when we come to a stage where we are inspired to chant more?
Yeah.
Or do we need to practice one?
Yeah, yes. So chanting constantly is an ideal, it's a good goal, but obviously most people cannot do that. They have other duties to do. And even we have Lord Chaitanya in his movement, most of his followers were grihastas sitting in Navadvip, and they had their duties to perform, so they're not always chanting their name constantly also. So according to your capacity, you chant as much as you can, and you do have your material duties, you have to attend to those as grihastas, etc. So Lord Chaitanya's followers, as I said, emphasize bhakti and emphasize Nam Sankirtan as the main element. They did not reject other processes, so therefore, to maintain their bodies, they practiced karma yoga, that is, they followed rules of varnashram for supporting their body and maintaining their families. And that is not direct bhakti. Along with that, they're chanting Hare Krishna, so they do that, and they're not constantly chanting in that sense. Not a problem.
So, like my question is like how we can realize that name is not different from Krishna, but at the same time, name is more powerful than Krishna. Not powerful, it is more merciful than Krishna.
Yeah. So the name is non-different. That you realize, the first realization will come in bhava. Because in bhava stage, you realize Krishna directly. And when you say the name, you realize Krishna. So that's the non-difference. And it becomes, you say, more absolute in prema even, like that. Huh? And the other question was?
Like how the name is more merciful than Krishna.
It's more merciful. Well, of course, not only the name is more merciful, we say Lord Chaitanya is more merciful than Krishna. We say Radharani is more merciful than Krishna. Ultimately, of course, Krishna is the supreme independent, so ultimately he's the most merciful, the most knowledgeable, and whatever. He's the most of everything. But we know that Krishna is independent, but he's also controlled by his devotee. It looks like a contradiction. Krishna serves the devotee. Krishna serves Arjuna. So it looks like he's not independent. So similarly, it also looks like Radharani is more merciful than Krishna, but she's just the Shakti of Krishna. And the Shakti is always dependent on the Shaktiman. But nevertheless, in terms of pastimes and activities, sometimes Krishna lets the devotee take a more powerful position. So in that sense, they can do more. In the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, he is Bhagavan, so he's also supreme independent. Yeah? But he's also infused with Radha's mood, and therefore her Shakti. So therefore he's double. He's got Radha's mercy and Krishna's mercy combined. So then in that sense more merciful.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you, Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for a wonderful class. My question is, actually you mentioned that during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, the initiation used to be directly, like one step process. So in today's time, like it has been made two steps, right? First Harinam, Diksha, and then second initiation, right? So when Krishna mentions Acharyopasnam in Bhagavad Gita, so in today's context, where does it map to? Does it map to first initiation or does it map to second initiation?
What is worship of Acharya?
Acharya Upasana.
Yeah.
Acharyopasnam, that is session 13th chapter Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna mentions. So does it truly map to, or does it complete when one takes a second initiation or first initiation itself?
Well,
Acharyopasnam?
worship of Acharya or worship of Guru can take place regardless of any initiation. Yeah. Even if you weren't initiated, you can worship and respect a Guru. You can accept him internally anyway. So it's kind of separate in one sense. But in tradition, of course, before Nam Sankirtan at least, then you would seek out a guru, a Vaishnava guru, and surrender to him as a first step. And when he sees you're qualified, then he may give you Diksha. And then you would carry out the worship in a more, let's say, formal manner, and he would give you knowledge, etc. at that point. So then the upasana would take place later. But we see in like ISKCON, we start the upasana much earlier. So we have, a Guru Padasraya, Prabhupada Sraya is a step after Krishna Sevaka, etc. So already you're worshiping Guru ahead. And if you don't worship Guru ahead, they probably won't even take you first initiation if you're not going to worship him. So, the steps are a little blurry there. But technically, of course, you could worship a devotee at any stage, and you can get effects from that. So it's kind of independent also of that process, which is more or less pancharatric process. Yeah.
So you told that if the mantra which is given by Guru, if it is revealed to anyone,
If the
mantra given by Guru, if it is revealed to anyone, it loses its power.
Yeah.
But Ramanacharya revealed to everyone.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was kind of on the borderline of, let's say, being liberal like Lord Chaitanya and giving the name to everybody. So he wanted to give the mantra to everybody. And Guru, of course, got angry at that also. So if you get the Guru angry, how can you get his mercy? So it's a little bit fuzzy there.
Maharaj, in this one we find that we give the sacred thread, we call it as sacred thread initiation, we call it as Brahman. So why is not Kshatriya or Vaishya? Because in
Why?
traditionally, sacred thread is given to Brahmana, Vaishnava.
Yeah. So technically getting a thread doesn't mean you're a Brahmin. It could be a Vaishya or it could be a Kshatriya also. So in that sense, it is a misnomer in one sense to get the thread. But the origin of that is the concept of being a Brahmana or Brahmanata, which is actually independent of getting a thread or getting Gayatri. That is to be qualified as a true Brahmana. So the true Brahmana is the Vaishnava. So, of course, nowadays by chanting Hare Krishna, you're a true Vaishnava. Chant constantly, you're a true Vaishnava. Previously, according to Pancharatra, you're a true Vaishnava when you get Diksha, and you get the Diksha mantra, the secret mantra, you're a Vaishnava. So you're the true Brahmana. That qualifies you as being Brahmana, regardless of what your ashram or your varna is. So when you're born into a Sudra family, you get Pancharatric Diksha, then you are true Brahmana. Yeah? But that doesn't mean that you're just like a regular Brahmana, you're actually superior to him. So the Smartas in Bhaktisiddhanta's time used to criticize the Gaudiya Vaishnavas as being low class because they would initiate people who were not, high class, Sudras or dog eaters or mlechas or whatever. And once they get the Diksha, they're qualified to worship the deity. So how is that possible? Brahmana should worship the deity. Lord Chaitanya and Bhaktisiddhanta said, no. If you're a Vaishnava, you're qualified to chant, to worship the deity. So therefore he said, we get Vaishnava initiation, get the mantra, so they're qualified. So we'll also give them a thread, we'll give them a Gayatri mantra, so superior to a Brahmana. We all the qualities of Brahmana, but we're more because of Vaishnava. So we're allowed to worship the deity in that way. So that's the only reason. It's not really being a Brahmana as such. It is actually surpassing the Brahmana. Hare Krishna. Oh, yeah. So I didn't know this. It was Vyas Puja of Gopal Krishna Maharaj on the Ekadasi. I didn't know that. That was, okay. Wednesday? Thursday. Okay, yeah, so of course, Gopal Krishna Maharaj passed away also recently. But still, we should always remember his contribution to the society. He is constantly being dedicating all of his time, in spite of his health concerns, etc., to establishing and expanding the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we see that due to his inspiration in his different temples, the book distribution has reached massive levels, so that the temples under his control, under his direction, have been able to put the subcontinent of India as the first in the world. So he was always inspiring his devotees to distribute books and in this way establish the movement of Lord Chaitanya. And of course we see that throughout North India he established many temples, and in Delhi itself, we have like 6 or 7 huge temples there, so it's all under his inspiration, etc. So he was constantly striving for fulfilling the desire of Srila Prabhupada. In the beginning days, if you go to Delhi in 1970 or 71 or 73, even 74, 75, they didn't have a permanent temple there at all. There was a rented place they had, a rented small house someplace. So then afterwards they got land and they developed Santnagar temple there or whatever, and then they began expanding. So it was all due to his endeavor that Delhi and that whole area, North India, began to develop. So he's been a great inspiration to everybody. And the main thing we should do, besides the glorification, is we should take inspiration from his dedication and try ourselves to dedicate ourselves to expanding the movement just as he did. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your patience and listening nicely. We can chant Hari Bol 3 times. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! There is small book distributions is there. You can see. There are wonderful books we have displayed there. Those who want now you can take. There is Bhagavad Gita, everyone would have studied detailed by Gita Bhushana, by Baladev Vidya Bhushan and Vishnu Chandra Thakur commentary. There is a book. It cost 1,350. Whoever wants can come and get it. So already one devotee getting it. Can chant Hari Bol for it. What's name? Hari Bol. Hari Bol. So evening also there is a special. Meanwhile, who all wants the book can come forward. Get the book and come. You can get it from Maharaj.